Hello and welcome to another episode of Morris LC Rescue. I'm really glad you could join us. Well, I think it's pretty fair to say that the tribe has spoken with respect to the truck that we picked up from Pine Gunner. I think I would be excommunicated from a number of Facebook groups if I tried to strip this truck for spare parts. I think unanimously everyone has asked if I can give this a crack and see if we can get it running again. So I will give it my absolute best, and who knows, I'd love to get this truck driving, not just running. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. I definitely think that will be a couple of episodes worth there to make all that happen. But yeah, we'll actually start laying some of the groundwork for that in this episode. So there's a few things have happened, and yeah, I'll give you the lead in. So basically we've got wet weather again today. It's raining on and off, so it's a good opportunity to do some stuff in the shed, and that's where we'll be. I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get into this week's episode. Just a shout out and a very personal thanks from myself to a couple of fans of the channel. Jim in South Australia, you're a bit laid up at the moment, mate, after a hip operation went south. But through his daughter, he actually managed to contact me on Facebook, and Jim's had a bit of a clean out in his shed, and bless you, Jim, you've actually sent me a carby and a fuel pump for a Morris truck. And whenever you receive something wrapped in newspaper, you know it's going to be good. So Jim, we can definitely use this. This particular carby, a lot of you would be familiar with it. It's the Solex 30 FAI, and this is a bolt-on to the LC3s. I'm kind of thinking that truck that we picked up in episode 5, I think we've just got our carby, guys. So a lot of you are telling me that I need to get that truck running. So I think that'll be the road that we're heading down, and that's a big step right there. So thank you, Jim. I really appreciate you watching, mate, and that was very, very generous of you to send that through. And yeah, a speedy recovery, mate. The next one we've actually been sent, quite a large item to pick up from the post office, was a steering wheel. So Bill up in Queensland, Bill's retired, and he's basically getting rid of a lot of his Morris stuff. So he saw a couple of our episodes on YouTube and very, very kindly sent this steering wheel down to me. Bill, I think I have a truck that I can use this in. The wheel that's on the truck that I'm thinking of is pretty badly gone, and this wheel that you've sent me, including the button in the center, which is usually always missing, yeah, what a fantastic gift. Very much appreciated, mate, and yeah, thank you very much for your generosity. Well, we're back in the shed again today, and the fire's on, the wood box is full, and we're just about to make a cup of tea and launch into this episode's little project. The weather's turned bad on us again. I had hoped to have Olive Oil's chassis outside this week and actually get it painted, which was going to make up this episode, and get the engine painted. But the weather is going to prevent us from doing that today. So. Well, I've been going through our parts bin, and I found a manifold out here. Now, I've got manifolds that I've already cleaned and serviced up here and that are ready to go on trucks, but that'd kind of be cheating and taking the easy road. So I've sort of found one of the dirtiest manifolds I've got here. And what I'll do is I'll take you through the process that I use when I get some of these old iron parts, and how I actually clean them up and get them ready to go back on the vehicles. Now, the plan would be also, no point doing a manifold if we don't actually do a carby. So I think what we might do is we might actually grab Jim's carby, and I'll take you through that process as well. we'll dive in and have a look at this this carby that Jim has sent us a little bit closer. These are great little carbies, very, very simple, very easy to service as well too. Everything comes apart and can be cleaned. So one of the things we'll be doing is stripping this carby, dropping it in the ultrasonic bath, and yeah, making sure we get all the gunk out from every crevice and corner of this carby, and then we'll certainly be putting a new carby kit through it and giving it a rebuild. The other job which needs doing on this carby, and this is, you know, this is really common on these carbs, you might be able to see that movement there on the butterfly shaft. So basically over time and with vibration off the engine, it's worn this little aluminium area out here against the brass shaft. And what we've essentially created on both sides of this is a vacuum leak now. And it's definitely something that we can remedy. I usually drill these out and fit a Solix bush kit from a VW Solix carby. So I can actually show you, we'll do that to this carby, and I'll step you through that process. The issue that this also creates is when this carby is mounted up on the manifold, basically what can happen, aside from the fact that it's going to idle really rough and be hard to adjust, is you'll actually get fuel leaking out. So when that fuel leaks out, it's sort of right above the exhaust manifold, so there's potential there for a fire if it drips down onto the a hot exhaust manifold. What a lot of people will do, rather than replace and put a bushing in there, they will tend to put a metal plate between the bottom of the carby here on the flange and on the top of the intake manifold, and it basically they try to stop that fuel from dripping down onto the hot manifold. So it's kind of a workaround, but ultimately the best way to fix it is to repair it. So yeah, we'll tackle that job. But all in all, this is a great looking carby. I'd be pretty convinced that this hasn't been abused, and certainly was probably on a working truck when it was removed. So Jim certainly looked after it, and yeah, I don't think it'll take too much to get this carby going again. Well, there's no sneaking up on the ducks, and we've just got a little patch of sunshine here in between the showers of rain. So they're out straight away enjoying a bit of sun. What we've actually come in here for is we're stealing their little outside bath. And the reason for that is that's going to become our electrolysis tank to clean up the manifold that we're going to be working on. So we'll remove that before they realise. And just for those who might be concerned that I've taken the ducks' water, they have an entire water trough here in the paddock, which they use as a bath and make a heck of a mess. Ducks are the dirtiest animals, but we like the eggs, and they're funny little things. They're good entertainment. So the idea of using electrolysis is certainly not a new one, been around for ages. And to my way of thinking, it's kind of a poor man's sandblasting. The cost of sandblasting down here in Tassie is quite expensive. So I sort of lean towards electrolysis to save a bit of money, but I actually also think that it does do a pretty good job. I've even used electrolysis on the LC fuel tanks, and recovered some pretty awful fuel tanks using that process. And to be honest, it's only really limited in what you can do by the size of the container that you're using. So we'll actually be doing some 20-inch rims in another episode from the LCs, and we'll use the same process of electrolysis. And I think, to be fair, it probably actually rivals sandblasting in terms of what it actually removes. And it really does rip only the oxide, so the rusted material, out of the metalwork, and it doesn't touch the good metalwork that's left. So pretty much the same as sandblasting. If it's done properly, the end of it, you'll definitely see a lot of the material that's been removed, and it'll certainly expose what material you've got left there to work with. So just another avenue. But we start the process using some scrap steel, which I'm just about to clean up with the wire wheel. We need to get any old rust off that material and start with a clean surface. So just a couple of little safety things here, guys, before we launch into our electrolysis. Really important to just be very, very careful, because we have got water and we have got electricity in this process. So those two aren't a good combination when a human's involved, and especially if it's 240 volts. So we just need to set ourselves up in a tidy way and make sure there's no possible way that our 240 can come in contact with the water bath while we're doing our electrolysis. Now the second important piece is that the byproduct of our electrolysis is going to be hydrogen gas. Now hydrogen is highly explosive, so best to run any of these electrolysis bars, no matter how big or small, outside in the open air. Definitely not something that you want to have in your workshop, and especially because it may take a few hours depending on how badly rusted the part is you're trying to clean. And if you're in an enclosed space, that can certainly build up a lot of gas, and there is always a risk of an explosion. So highly unstable hydrogen gas, take it outside. So we've cleaned up our piece of scrap steel here, and this is actually going to form what's called the cathode in our electrolysis bath. And this will have a positive charge on it. So the rust and the oxide, which is on the manifold, will actually hold a negative charge, and the electrons containing that rusted and oxidized material will move from the manifold and be attracted to the positive cathode. But it's really important that we actually clean these up. We've wire brushed both these pieces of steel just to remove any loose material that might be on them, and it will just make these cathodes work better, and the process will actually happen faster. So how I run my particular setup is I've actually got a DC caddy welder here, which at the moment I've got set to 60 amps. From my positive terminal on my welder, I'm actually going across to my cathode on my metal plate here, and I'll use a car jumper lead to go from the first cathode to the second cathode. Now what that effectively does is that just basically doubles the surface area of the cathode in the tank, and it makes that electrolysis process happen a little faster and a little easier. In the bottom of the tank you can see our sodium carbonate, which is just simply washing soda, which you can buy from your local supermarket. Nothing magical there, but when mixed with water, that actually also assists that electrolysis process. So the next thing we've got our manifold sitting here, which is a bit rusty and chunky. We're going to throw that in holus bolus and let that magic start to happen. Most important thing we've got to do is make sure that when that is sitting in the tank, it doesn't physically touch the cathode. So we've got to make sure that we've got clearance on both sides and get a bit of an idea of where that will sit. And then when we're ready to start that process, all we'll simply be doing is hooking the negative lead off our welder straight onto the piece in the tank, and that will kick the process off. So all right, we're outside, we've got plenty of fresh air around us at the moment, and I can't believe it, the sun has come out. I should be painting, but anyway, we'll kick on with our electrolysis. All right, let's see how we go. So what I want to show you here, guys and girls, I've got my my lead hooked up, joining the two cathodes together now as well. What I want to show is just demonstrate to you when I turn this on, we should start to see that reaction happen immediately. So I'll turn him on and just keep your eye on the screen there. So we've powered up, and there we go. Straight away, you can see it's starting to bubble. And you may even see the gas coming off the water there, and that is our hydrogen gas. So that's Now obviously with this setup as well, guys and girls, I've actually got it sitting up off the ground. I certainly wouldn't want any of the pups to come along and stick their snout in there and try and have a drink. They might get a nasty shock. And of course we'd have to be very careful around young children and make sure that we're in an area where kids and pets can't get to our little science experiment here. I'm just using my old BOC industrial inverter welder here as my power supply. That being said, you don't have to use a DC caddy welder. This process will certainly work on a 12 volt power supply. Pretty much any DC power supply that can give you a constant current will work for this electrolysis process. If you happen to have one of the old school battery chargers, which will give you 13.8 volts out and up to 10 amps, then that's also perfect for this process. The lower the current, it does take a little bit longer for that process to happen, but hey, we're not in a rush here, so yeah, if it takes a bit longer, it takes a bit longer. What you can see starting to come up to the surface there too is the oxidization. So that's what's actually being pulled off the manifold and floating to the surface. It's actually not looking too bad in there. It's pretty clean. As I said, this Carby's in really good nick. So what we've done here is just strip the Carby to a point where we can work on everything, we can see everything, and we can also drop it in our ultrasonic bath and know that right down to the jets, everything's going to be cleaned. So we'll get everything cleaned up, and then we're actually going to be working on this butterfly, and we'll disassemble this, take the shaft out and do a closer inspection on that. But yeah, we'll give everything a good clean up first. So we've got our parts to be cleaned in the tank. I will be cleaning the jets separately. I've got this little tea strainer here that I'll put them in. But I'm just about to add our cleaning solution, and yeah, we'll let it rip. So what I've done here is basically put our cleaning solution in and then diluted it significantly just with hot water. I've just got to be a bit careful here. I don't want to get too close with the camera when we turn it on. Didn't have a great time with that last time we tried to do this. The RF affected the footage that we were taking. So anyway, we'll turn it on, cross our fingers, and see what happens. So I've got our jets and some of our other little brass plugs and components in our little tea strainer here. I'm just going to pop that in as well and give those a little bit of a clean, not for the same length of time as the Carby body, but in they go. Well, we've just taken our components out of the ultrasonic bath after our 15 minutes. The brass work has just come up a treat. It just blasts away the grime and the build-up that's in all those galleries and really gives the Carby a good clean out. It's not going to come up like new, but we're certainly making sure that any sort of years of crud that have been built up. Oh, we've got to take that idle screw out there. We'll have to pull that out. Yeah, any of that crud that's built up over the years gets blasted away, and we end up with a pretty murky looking soup. as the leftover in our ultrasonic cleaner. So anyway, on to the next stage. So in the final part of our cleaning process here, I've actually just got some brake cleaner, and with the pieces that have come out of the ultrasonic bar, I'm just going to give them a good rinse down in the brake cleaner, just to bust out any of the last little bits and pieces that might be still clinging on in there, and also too to get our cleaning solution out. Just ensures that we don't leave any residue behind in there anyway, anywhere in the galleries, and gives it one final clean. I guess being a carby, yeah, you know, we really want to be careful and make sure that we get as much of this rubbish out as we possibly can. Just drop our other pieces in there for a soak. So I just want to show you this, even after, this is our brake cleaner, which we've soaked our parts in after coming out of the ultrasonic bath. And I don't know if you can see that, but that's what we've got out of that carby, just soaking in that brake cleaner as well. So look, it's really worth the effort, guys, to just go the extra step with your carbies. That's surprised even me, but because usually the ultrasonic cleaner will get it'll get stink off a monkey, but that there is quite a lot of large material left over in that brake cleaner, and you can see the colour of it. It's gone from clear to quite dirty, and the end result is that yeah, we've got some carby components here now which we know are very, very clean, and we've done the best job we can to get any corrosion and gunk off those components before we put them back in. We'll check all our jets, of course. Now, the other tip I've got for you, if you have got a small workshop, maybe you don't have a compressor, this is a handy little thing to have. It's they use them on computer keyboards, but I actually use it rather than break out the compressor. I use it for actually cleaning out all the galleries in the carby once I've done it. You don't want to leave any of that material behind, and this will just blow air through the little galleries and make sure that there's no residual liquids or any hard material in there that might cause you a problem down the track when you go to reassemble and start the vehicle. There is one little jet in here which sits just in the top part of the carby, and I have never successfully been able to get that out. For some reason, that one little jet just seems to lock itself in there, and no matter how you try, and the thing is, I don't want to force it, because if I break it, I'm probably going to struggle to get a replacement for it. Fortunately, I can see straight through, so if I put a light on this side, I can tell straight away that that's clear. So I'm not going to bother actually taking that out. I'll just leave that in there at the risk of actually damaging it. But yeah, the compressed air is definitely helpful, and just make sure you don't leave anything behind where it shouldn't be. So we're just going to head back outside to our little science experiment out here and see how that's travelling. Ah, yeah, as you can see, we've got quite a decent reaction going on here. I suppose if it was a beer, you'd be happy with that. It's got quite a head of foam on it, but yeah, look, you can see the masses of oxidised material that are coming off there. And what we might do is we might shut it down and actually turn it over, so that we make sure that both sides of that manifold are getting the same attention. So of course we're going to make sure that we turn our power off, and we're going to disconnect our cable there, and that just neutralises our whole circuit then. Rightio, we'll take our clip off. We're going to have to go in here. Now this is not corrosive, it's not going to eat your hands away if you put it in there. It could possibly be warm or hot even, because along with hydrogen, heat is a byproduct when we pass current through water like this. So that's just mildly warm in there. So what we'll do is we'll lift this up, and you can see literally that's what's coming off our manifold. Nice and foamy there. And if you give that manifold a bit of a rub, you can actually see that the steel is starting to turn black. And where we had those big flakes of rust on the backside here, it's actually all gone. So this reaction is happening extremely well. It really is chewing this rust off the old manifold. So what we'll do is we'll turn him over and hook him back up again, and probably give him another hour or so just on this side now, and see if we can achieve the same result. And turn our power back on, and as the Beatles said, let it be. I'm just going to have a look in my box of carby parts and just see exactly what I've got here. Now the kits for these carbies are actually readily available through Brad Dunn Vintage Truck Spares, so he can supply them to you, and yeah, you'll pretty much get everything you need. I've actually got some shafts in here. So these are for Zenith carbies, but they should actually work on our Solex carbie. Now we'll use that if our shaft is worn too badly, which I am fully expecting. So there's an old shaft that I've replaced before. It's probably a bit hard to pick up on the camera, but if you turn it, you can actually see this edge here is just completely worn away. So that's brass wearing on aluminium, and the other side's not much better. So even if we put new bushes into the base of our carby and then put this shaft back in, we're still obviously going to have play there. So just better off without it, really. So going through my bag of tricks here, we'll definitely need one of these bolts. We'll have to try and find a little mesh filter from somewhere to resurrect that. That was actually missing out of Jim's carby, so we've got a new one there to replace that. And our bushes, I've got a new needle and seat here, again courtesy of Brad Dunn Vintage Truck Spares, or Truck Supplies, but I don't think we'll need this. The other needle and seat seems to be working okay. Now I've got a couple of different bush options here. These are probably the ones I'll go with. Both of these will fit the VW Solex carbies, but they can be easily adapted for these 30 FAIs. So just before I do start work on that bushing, I'm just going to start reassembling a couple of these components, mainly so I don't forget where everything goes. I've got my new banjo bolt here for the float bowl, and what I have got here, I've managed to find a mesh filter which I've cleaned up just using throttle body cleaner, and that's come up okay. So number one thing I'm going to do is slip that on there so I don't lose it. So this ring that sits in the top of the carby and helps hold our air cleaner in place, or gives us a flange to mount the air cleaner pipe to. We're actually going to drop this in the electrolysis bath while we've got it running. It is a bit rusty and crudded up, so that'll soon rip all that off, and yeah, that'll be as good as new. the shaft is certainly not as badly worn as some that I've worked on, but there is still a definite groove cut around there where it's just worn against the aluminium on the housing. So we are going to have to replace that shaft, which is normal. You know, we'd expect that. So, and it's going to be pretty impossible to show you on the camera, but this is where our shaft comes through. On both sides, it's actually slightly elliptical, where the shaft has been over time moving up and down, if you like, in that bush. So it's not worn evenly, which is another challenge for us. So anyway, we'll get it done. Well, we're just taking a little break from our carby, and I've just come out to check and see how our electrolysis is going here on our manifold. I think you'll agree there's probably been a bit of a change since we were here last. It's just about to start bubbling over the sides, I think. So all that, again, that you see there in that foam is just basically the oxidised material that's coming off that manifold. If we were sandblasting, obviously that would just be blown away in the medium. But yeah, I think we've got a pretty good result going on here. This is after another hour in the tank. So we'll shut this down and pull the manifold out, have another look, and see if we're ready to go to the next stage. Trying to pull this out without actually letting it go off the alligator clip. You might be able to see that's actually steaming there. But I tell you what, I think we are ready to go to the next stage. That has pretty much stripped every last little bit of rust from the inside and the outside. There is loose material there, but for the most part, we're just back to black steel. Which is a super good result. All right, I'll clean my hands, we'll take this out, and we'll go to the next stage. Before I forget, and while I've got it running, I'll just pop this ring from the top of the carby in here for a bit as well, and yeah, just clean the rust off it. It's got a bit of scale and rubbish on there, so that should do the trick in this bath. So many satisfying parts to this process. So the next step for us is to really get in there and pressure wash this manifold out. You can already see that as soon as we've taken out of the water, that material is starting to oxidize again. So we just want to give it a good clean out, inside and out. So I've given it a quick pressure clean. I haven't sort of mucked around with it too much. But what I'm going to try and show you here is, if you have a look, I don't know how well this will work in the light. It's just been raining, but what you can see down in there is the pitting. So the rust itself has gone, and all that's actually left there is the pits that have been eaten out by the rust. Just try and turn this into the light a little bit, might make it easier to see. I don't know how good that is, but there's not a lot of light outside at the moment. But yeah, you can see there that there is pitting that is still obvious. You'll never get rid of that. But yeah, the rust as a whole is gone. So what we'll do is we'll finish. We probably should have taken this flange off to start with, but I'll do that now. I'll take that off. And what we will need to do is try and get this manifold dry as quickly as we can, because we've got pure exposed metal there. So if we left that overnight, that would oxidize again and we'd have a layer of rust on there. So what we're going to do is get it dry and then give it a good coat of etch primer, followed up with some zinc. So yeah, zinc, probably silver zinc paint or black zinc paint. There we go. We'll just leave our manifold for a little bit and cook him down, and yeah, he'll dry out and then he'll be ready for paint. Okay, so these manifold nuts probably just a little bit tighter than I anticipated. I don't want to wreck the threads, so what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of heat on there and yeah, see if we can crack those nuts off using a bit of heat. What do you reckon, guys and girls? 3 out of 3? Look at that. Like a knife through butter. As I said, just amazing what you can do with a little bit of heat. Gives it that bit of persuasion. Save the nuts, save the threads. I think we'll just let this one soak in here for a little bit. It's certainly not going to hurt it, and yeah, it'll just rip off whatever's left behind. So the leftover wastewater that we've got here, it's, as I say, it's just iron basically, water and sodium carbonate. So generally what I do is just tip it out on the lawn and hose it in. Yeah, doesn't seem to do any harm. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing to get rid of this. The oxidised material that's come off our manifold. So, and the good news is we can keep reusing these plates. We'll just let them dry, and next time we need to do some electrolysis, we'll just hit them with the wire wheel, clean them up, and they'll be good to go again. So it is the next day now. Unfortunately, I couldn't keep going with this manifold yesterday. I had to move on to other things. Didn't take my own advice, did I? And already you can see that this has sat for less than 12 hours, and we've got some oxidisation happening just in various places around this manifold. So what we need to do now is get it painted as quickly as we can, and we'll give it a good coat of etch primer, and then we'll also give it a good coat, thick coat of a zinc paint as well too, or zinc enriched paint. The base of our manifold flange here came off without any trouble. Probably the combination of both electrolysis and the little bit of heat that we used just freed it up. These studs, before this manifold ever finds a permanent home, we'll definitely take these out and replace them. But for what we're trying to do here at the moment, this will certainly work for us. So, all right, we'll get it painted. So I've just got the two parts here to the bottom of the carby. We've got our brand new shaft here, and if we slide that into place, what you can feel in there, and you may be able to see, there's still a significant amount of movement in there on that shaft, and that's just telling us yet again that this is fairly badly worn on both sides here. So yeah, this is why we need to fit a new bush. So at the risk of opening myself up to a whole world of hurt here, because again, there'd be professional machining shops out there that have probably a lot better way of doing this, but this is my little Solex jig. It's nothing flash. It's actually a piece of angle iron, and I know that it is set perfectly to 90 degrees. And what I do is I basically mount this up in my drill press, like so. And then using a drill in the press, I'm able to move this slightly until I've got it exactly centered with the drill passing directly through both of the bushing holes, and that way I can center it perfectly. Once it's centered there, I lock that drill down in position, bolt everything up tight, and then as long as I can move that drill up and down and extract it easily in and out of that bush, I know that I've got it centered well enough to do the job that we want to do. So as I say, don't hate me. I mean, there's probably many other ways of doing it out there. This is the way that I've used for quite a while and works for me. So yeah, look, if you're not comfortable doing something like this, certainly take it to your local engineering shop and have them do it for you. As I say, they are a pretty rare carby, and yeah, you don't want to damage anything beyond repair. So I'll leave that one up to you, but I'll show you how I do it. Okay, so we've got everything secured there, and you might be able to see that our drill passes really easily down through those bushes. So we know that we've got that as straight as we can do in this sort of a homemade jig. So we've moved up to the drill bit, which is now fractionally smaller than the bush that we're going to install. I've opted to use one of the fluted VW Carby bushes, and I find these hold just a little bit better in the aluminium over time. So that'll be our choice for this job. We've got the drill set to 500 RPM. I'm going to be using some cutting fluid there. We certainly don't want that chattering. We've got a brand new quality Goliath drill in there now, so yeah, hopefully we've got all our ducks in a line here. As I say, it's a process I've used before and has worked exceedingly well. Actually done really well there. That's measuring up beautifully. Certainly it looks to me like that hole is very well centered, much better than it was with what we started with. So yeah, look, the next stage will actually be to just use very gently, I might add, use one of our precision reams and actually make some slight adjustments in here so that our bushes will push straight in. So we know now that we've got our bushing hole to within probably 0.3 to 0.4 of a millimetre of where we need it to be to actually snugly insert our bush. So what I'm going to do is use a ream, and I'm going to incrementally adjust that. So as I tighten that ream up, the blades expand ever so slightly. I'll keep using my verniers here just to keep measuring that distance, and ever so slightly I'll start taking that hole out, and we'll go straight through this side out the other and keep everything as even and straight as we possibly can. The process is time consuming, so I may even just skip this little bit and just take you right to the end. So I'm pretty satisfied now that we've got that close enough that we can actually start inserting a bush, and we should have about somewhere between around about 0.1 of a mil. And what I can feel there is that bush, it's just sitting in there quite snugly, and we'll check the other side. It should be the same. So yeah, we've got the same on both sides. We've got a nice snug fit there. So I think we're pretty ready to actually go ahead and actually insert these bushes now. So I have jumped ahead a bit here, guys, and the reason for that is this is just an incredibly tedious process. You'd probably question why you wouldn't take it to a machine shop and have them do it for you. It would probably be done a lot faster. But the truth of it is, I actually enjoy the challenge, and I like to see how close I can get things, and yeah, basically how accurate I can make my measurements. So what we've ended up with here is, at the end of it all, a perfect fit. So my new shaft is in there. I've got no play in the bushes on either side there. It's just a beautiful fit. So I did stuff up, but about 2.5 hours in, I managed to damage one of my new bushes, and let me tell you, the air was a little bit blue. So basically I had to back that bush out and pretty much start again. So the process took a lot longer than I thought it would. I'm still only using the most basic of tools here. I've got a file which yeah, was my granddad's. I use that for where that bush comes through on either side there. It actually comes square out of that hole, so you've got to round that off to the same shape as the Venturi. So again, you know, very time consuming, taking incremental amounts, measuring, checking, and then finally using some very fine emery paper just to get that completely flush with the edge of the inside of the chamber. And that's ×2 because you're doing that on both sides. So as I say, you probably would question why anybody in their right mind would tackle that at home. But yeah, look, it just comes down to the challenge and the fact that I can say with a lot of pride that I've done that to the best of my ability, and I know it's going to work for for a long time. So yeah, we'll get to with reassembling the rest of the carby now. I think we can start putting the final bits back together. Well, there's no way that you could say that this fits as well as it probably did when it left the factory. However, what I can say is it's fitting considerably better than when we started working on it. And it's great to see this little butterfly closing properly now and not bouncing around inside that venturi when we wiggle the shaft. So we've got a really good fit in there. I think this carby is going to work brilliantly when we get it back together. So in case you haven't guessed by now, one of the joys of living in Tasmania is not being able to get paint to dry properly. So what I'm having to resort to here, I want to get this manifold finished and our little bushing piece for the top of the carby, but I'm having to resort to secret lady tools here. So really any port and storm, and yeah, we've just got to get this paint dry and get this finished if we can. So I kind of feel like we've put in the hard yards on this one. The carby did test me out. I mean, the other ones I've done for some reason seem to go a bit easier. This one just proved to be a little bit troublesome with that bush. Anyway, we got there in the end, very happy with the job. Because we did have bad weather and because Olive Oil's engine is still in its test cradle, there's a platform for us to actually test this carby. So that's what I think we'll do. We'll unbolt Olive's carby and bolt this one up and yeah, see if she's a runner. Okay, well we've got water in our radiator, we've got our fuel connected, so I think we're just about ready to give this a try. I've got no major fuel leaks anywhere that I can see. Yeah, we'll fire her up and see what the result is. Nearly. Something's not quite happy in there. Just double check my fuel. Yep, should have plenty of that. Ignition circuit's all hooked up. Should be all good there. Right, so what I've just figured out from that is when I've reassembled this carby, I've actually got my choke circuit on backwards. So what's happening there is, yeah, basically I'm trying to run it, and as I normally would with the choke fully on, which is why it's missing and carrying on. So I'll need to take that off and just literally rotate that 180 degrees, and that will solve that problem. Well, all in all, that's a pretty good result. We've got a carby that's working now, and yeah, we know it'll be enough and reliable enough to test on our Plymouth truck when we get around to that. So yeah, it might have been a long process with that carb, but it's certainly worth it. You know, these old carbs can be a little bit fiddly, but I think it was worth putting in the time with it. Every day is a school day and you never stop learning, so when something goes wrong, then yeah, you're always going to learn something from that mistake or that problem. So anyway, guys, I'm really glad you could join us. I hope you'll hang around for the next episode, and yeah, bye for now. Brad Dunn Vintage Truck Supplies. Guaranteed to lean your mixture, clean your jets, and lower your emissions every time. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. I reckon it's lunchtime, Mr. Poopy. Hey? You little monkey. Yeah, lunchtime, hey?